I have not tested others. So by default, Jenkins run tests in invisible mode, and there is some configuration which we should be with which we should be able to set Jenkins and run browsers the way we can see them. But I don't even see the point of having Jenkins on the same machine where you can start your test from IDE, Eclipse or IntelliJ, maybe only to learn it like the person was doing. So usually Jenkins will be installed on the server, code in GitHub or some other code management tool, and test will be executed with Selenium Grid on local virtual machines or in cloud using South Labs, Browser Stack, or other cloud services. So now let me show you the test I prepared today, just as an example. So this is gonna be the page under test, and we will have just one simple test case, open page, submit username and password, click on login button, and few verifications here on this page. So make sure that new URL contains secure, logout button is visible, and this success message is there. So all the code I will show you today, I have it on GitHub. I push it to GitHub so you guys can, if you want later use this example, you can download it or pull it from GitHub. I will just ask you not to make any changes if in the future somebody else will want to use this code. And I am recording this presentation, so if you want, I will put it on YouTube later on my channel. So later, if you want to repeat or get all the links which I will use today or example, you will be able to watch this video again. I use Java and TestNG on my work, and in this example I use page object model in my test, but I did not implement it for this example. It's not important to what we are trying to learn here. So now let me switch to the code. Okay. So here are a few classes. I will go quickly one by one to show you how I implemented the code and what's here. So first of all, the test class, simple test case, open page, enter username, enter password, push login button, and execute few verifications. So in base test, we create WebDriver in base test, and we close WebDriver here in the base test. So when we create driver, we are receiving two parameters to figure out what browser to use to run the test and where we want to use, where we want to run our test, on grid or locally. So here's the driver browser factory. So basically here, if we specify in our test suite that we want to run test locally, we will use this create driver method, which will simply set new Chrome driver or Firefox driver. If we want to run test on grid, so here's the hub URL and a little different way to start test on grid. So we're gonna use capabilities, and we're using this time remote WebDriver to start test on grid. Resources I have here, so Chrome driver and Gecko driver. As you see, I'm using POM Maven to run tests. So all the dependencies are here in the POM XML file. But you will be able to see them later if you want, if you will go to GitHub page. So now let me show you two simple test suites. They are basically the same. They will start same test in Chrome and in Firefox. I use TestNG parameter to specify what browser I want to run this test in, and one parameter, suite level parameter, to specify if I want to run test on grid or locally. Getting echo. Now so first of all, let me run test locally. So right click, run as test. Well, I can hear myself. Let me see, what can I do? Now looks better now. Okay. So first example, let me just run test from the IDE. I use Eclipse, and the test will. Okay, what happened? Oh, no. Instead of running test locally, I try to run them on grid. So here's the test suite to run test locally, and I am showing you this on my secondary monitor, so the browser will start on my primary monitor, the Chrome and Firefox. So both tests run, both tests executed, everything's fine. Now, to run test on grid, so as I tried before, I launched test on grid, but nothing worked because we did not start the grid yet. Let me switch back to Chrome. So here's the link to the grid console on my computer, and because it's not started yet, there's nothing here. Now, to start grid, I created two batch files, but let me open and see what's inside. So basically, instead of opening command prompt, going to the folder where I have my here's the folder where I have my Selenium server and Chrome driver and Gecko driver to run tests in Firefox. So I basically, instead of opening the folder and running this command from command prompt, I just created and saved batch file. So let me run this batch file to start hub. So it started command prompt, and now it says Selenium Grid Hub is running and clients should connect to this URL. So now when we go back to our grid console, we can see the console is running, but so far there is no nodes connected to it. So next step is to start node. So let me first show you the command to start node. So basically this is the command. We need to have Selenium standalone server jar in our folder where we want to start it, role node, and this URL to connect to hub. And I also specified that this node will only have Firefox available. So when we start node, node is registered to the hub and ready to use. So now when we go to grid console and refresh the page, we can see one node here. So it says Windows 10 and Firefox is available. Now I have another computer connected to my Wi-Fi. Let me start another node there with Chrome. So we will have two nodes available to run our tests. Okay, so I'm starting another node on second computer, which unfortunately you can see. So now it says not registered, and here's another computer which is also Windows 10, and it has only one Chrome browser available. So now our grid started, we have two nodes connected, and now we should be able to run our positive test grid suite. So right click, run as TestNG suite. So this time on my primary computer it should start only Firefox. Yes, here it is. And I see, and you have to trust me on this one, I see the Chrome is running on my second computer. Okay, so test passed. So basically this is how you set up the grid. I mean, I went through it really quickly, and especially if you're not advanced Selenium user, it's probably hard for you to follow, but if you want, you will be able to later download the code and use it as example. Now, Jenkins. Okay, go ahead.
If you use virtual machines, how do you configure the virtual machines not to lock the screen? Keep the screen alive.
Why do you need to keep the screen alive?
Because otherwise you won't be able to run the tests. Remote session, but the remote session closes.
The tricks, you should disconnect remote session not from your computer, but directly from the VM.
Okay.
It's a trick. You're closing remote session from the VM inside, and the session is there presented. It's working fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I do not use VMs. I run all my tests on South Labs, so I don't have this pain in the ass configuring virtual machines. I'm lucky my company can afford monthly South Labs and subscriptions. So now Jenkins, let me see where I stopped. So here I have installed Jenkins on my computer. First, let me show you the configuration. So manage Jenkins global tool configuration. So because I'm using Java and Maven to run my test, here on Jenkins I configure it Java, JDK, and Maven to be able to run tests. And I have two jobs, so automation grid and automation local. Basically two identical jobs, the only difference is which test suite to run. So automation local will run our positive test local, and where is it? Automation grid will run our positive test grid. So now let me start positive test local, and here so now we will have this problem that the person who asked the question in Slack had when she tried to run tests from Jenkins. So she could not understand why or how to make a browser visible when you run tests from Jenkins. So let's go to Jenkins, local, start. So same test started, but so far I do not see any browser. And as I said, I did not configure my Jenkins to show the browser, so that's why by default it's running headless. But you will not run any local test when you will have Jenkins installed somewhere on the server, which you will have in 99% of the time at your work. So, and now let me run tests on grid from Jenkins. So basically this is the way how everything is set up at my work, except I do not run tests locally or on any virtual machines. I run them using South Labs. So now Firefox should run on this computer, and Chrome should start on my another Windows 10 computer. So far I don't see, so I see Chrome on my second computer, and here's Firefox. So now when we use grid to execute test, now we can see the browsers. So basically that's it. Now before I will let you ask questions if you have them, and hopefully I know the answers, let me give you few links to my tutorials and coupons to my tutorials if you want to take them. Or maybe you have friends who want to start test automation career. So here's my profile on Udemy, where right now I have only 3 tutorials. Selenium WebDriver for beginners. Recently I added XPath tutorials, which will help you to basically create any locator to any element on any web page. and my oldest Selenium WebDriver testing framework from scratch. So this is tutorial I recorded. I didn't even think to upload it to Udemy or any other where I can sell it. Basically, a lot of my friends were asking questions about test automation, where to start, how to develop the framework, and I'm just too lazy to answer same questions again and again and again. So I just decided to record the tutorial, put it on YouTube, and later I put it on Udemy. Also, I have 3 video tutorials published by Pact Publishing. So one basically similar to this Selenium WebDriver for beginners, advanced Selenium automation, and optimizing Selenium test performance. So this one includes whatever I showed you today except Jenkins. So how to set up and run tests on Grid, and also how to set up and run tests in South Labs. Now, unfortunately, I do not have coupons to these 3 tutorials because I do not own them. I had the contract with Pact Publishing to record these tutorials for them. But I do have coupons to Udemy, so if you or any of your friends want to use, let me switch here. So here's the coupon you can use to get my courses for $9.99. And that's it. Now, if you have any questions, I will try to answer them. Okay. And again, as I said, I am recording this presentation, so later you will be able, if you want, to see it again on YouTube. And I will post all the links to GitHub and all other links to Slack group and in the description to the YouTube video. Yep.
Do you have slides for that? Could you share it as well?
Slide for what?
For the presentation, or you just have a recording basically?
I can share the slide, but basically 1 and 2. So I can drop, I can take screenshot and drop it in the Slack also.
Alright, cool. So I have a question.
Hey, Dimitri, you mentioned that you might be using also browser stack.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In my experience, it's been a little, like, not a bit, a lot slower when I'm trying to, running through the local network. Is that an issue with browser stack, or is an issue maybe with the local network?
You are, so which one is slower, browser stack or local?
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, how do you make it? Because if it's really slow, it doesn't make sense to automate. It just takes a long time to actually go through the UI flow. So is it fast for you? And if it is fast and acceptable to automate, what's the setup that you use?
Well, I cannot tell you much about browser stack. I use South Labs. I do not have any issues with South Labs. Well, it definitely takes few seconds to start a virtual machine and start the browser because they basically use a new virtual machine for each test. So when you send them command that you want to run test, for example, on Safari 10.13 and the macOS this version and Safari this version, they will create new virtual machines. So it will take few seconds before you can actually start the code, but it usually less than a minute. And since I run our test overnight, I don't really care about this extra 30 seconds every time. But the advantages are huge compared to setting up local grid and maintaining local grid, have all the servers with all the virtual machines. So I think it's better for the cost. and you are provided with video recordings, screenshots. So basically, when test fails, you have all the information you can imagine to be able to quickly debug what exactly happened and if it's actual problem or just something with the test.
Question: you mentioned that you're working for the company which is located in Texas, and as far as I know, the source lab is located in California. So, do you have any problems running that solution? I mean, in terms of network latency and stuff, because you are basically cycling the traffic back and forth between California and Texas.
Oh, it's nothing different than just watching Netflix. It's the internet. There's no any slowdowns. Everything works just fine.
Right, Dmitry. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, round of applause for Dimitri. Thank you so much, Dimitri. And due to an error, we ordered way more pizza than we needed for tonight. So please take a box home for your family, for your